Teachers who regularly get invited to high school reunions. What are the most amazing transformations, common patterns, epic stories, saddest declines, etc. you've seen through the years? Welcome back to Reddit Chronicles. If you're new here, consider subscribing to help me feed my channel and grow my cat. And if you like the video, do kindly give it a thumbs up to help me out. Let's get started. In high school, I was pretty good friends with a guy that was a bit overweight, about 6'4", really smart, and a bit nerdy. Lost track of him after high school, but saw him at our 10-year reunion. He was the talk of the reunion, still tall, lost all the weight, and was in great shape. Had long hair like Fabio, and was a doctor. He showed up with a beautiful wife. He gave us his contact info, and invited us to Atlanta to stay with him in his huge house. After the reunion, I tried to get in touch. Contact info didn't work, and through some sleuthing, I found out he was neither married or a doctor. He was in good shape, can't fake that, but faked everything else. The dumb Fs that graduated my year of 2001 tried to organize our 10-year reunion in 2010. Going to post my mom's story because she doesn't have an account. She was a home economics teacher, and specifically, she had one class called Relationship Psychology, where every day to start the class, she would read through the cheesy Dear Abby newspaper advice column to talk with the class on how they would respond to the problem. One day ahead of class, she noticed that a letter published talked about a kid who sounded a lot like a student in her class and was located in our hometown. They always end the letter with a name and city, and my mom was always very involved with her students and their personal lives. The letter talked about a kid who was terrified of going to college and how he got rejected from all the schools he wanted to go to. Had no self-confidence, abusive father, money problems, and that he would lose all his close friends. Couldn't stand the idea of leaving his disabled mother, and that he felt enormous pressure as a first-gen college student and had ultimately decided not to go to college at all. She read it to the class and they discussed, and she could tell the boy in her class was very uncomfortable. After class, she asked him about it, and it was in fact a letter written by him. He never thought it would get published and responded to by the Dear Abby column and was super embarrassed. He, like most students, never even knew what the Dear Abby column was until they took her class. Afterwards, she talked through everything with him and talked with his mother and reevaluated his options on how to best approach college. She taught him finances, loans, scholarship options, his mom's condition, and everything, and got him to a place where he felt better about his future. 4 years later, the kid ended up being the speaker at his college graduation of over 7,000 kids, met his wife at college, all of his groomsmen, and got a killer job through his career fair on campus before graduating. She flew out and attended as he invited her. Was always blown away by that. It's always great when teachers care about their students as if they were their own kids. A previous student of mine grew up in a horrible home situation. This individual was really smart, and I did my best to help them apply/receive many scholarships and grants, and eventually went to an Ivy League school to get away from their abusive home life. They made it big, and I mean big. Big-time millionaire. Made their family jealous, but in the end, their hard work paid off. It was great to see, and I was so proud of what they'd become. Edit. The best thing was seeing them break the chain. The family had problems going back numerous generations, and to see this generation change was all worth it. Not a teacher, but I went to my 10-year reunion. Back in high school, we had a kid who has Asperger's and was a little weird. He was, however, amazing at the yo-yo, having picked one up during middle school when we had the yo-yo trick assembly. After everyone else had stopped walking the dog in 8th grade, this guy was doing more and more elaborate tricks every day during lunch. He was bullied and teased, but he continued doing what he loved. So, at our 10-year reunion, people from every strata of high school popularity was there, including this guy. He was his same old self, but more confident. I asked him if he still yo-yos, and he busted out his custom-made titanium yo-yo that he said he made on a CNC lathe. He then starts to do some tricks, and a large crowd gathered around. It was quite the show. He had gotten very good. When he finished, people clapped and cheered. Even the jockiest dudes from back in the day fist bumped him and told him how badass he was. The most amazing transformation was everyone else. Nobody teased him for being who he was anymore. Now they admired him for being so passionate about something. I never thought about it quite like that, but I think OP is right. In high school, everyone cares about their social image and wants to fit in, so anyone who's passionate about something stands out and gets made fun of. But those tend to be the same people who make it later in life. They're passionate about something, they get really good at it, and maybe they find a way to monetize it. So if you're in school right now and you're passionate about something and you get ripped on for it, all I can say is keep it up. You're going to do much better than them in the future. Used to have this one kid in my art class in senior high who treated it as one of those easy to pass classes. He was a big guy, much bigger than the other students, and he used his size and strength to bully other kids, that is, the smaller ones. He was a little beach underneath it all. He would draw guns in classes in his art book with pseudo-gangster sayings like, "Live by the gun, die by the gun," and "F the police." You get the idea. Come reunion time, which was some 5 years later, he's found a girl who really reined him in, and kind of like a hunter taming a wolf, really turned him into a good man. They had a baby boy, and he's a responsible father and does yoga on the rocks by the beach. Complete 180. I do think he was a good guy underneath it all. He just needed direction from someone who could break down his walls. Not a teacher, but I went to my 20th about 5 years ago. The woman organizing the event was in my class since 3rd grade, and was always bright, intelligent, charming, and pretty. She was very active in high school, and by all counts, had a very bright future. Speaking to her at the reunion, it seemed that had happened for her. We talked about her self-help / life coaching company and how they are growing and doing great. I asked her to send me more information when I got home, which is on the other side of the country. I got an email from her introducing me to her West Coast partner, whose email was from the URL espnlosangeles.com, which I thought sounded very contrary to what I was expecting. A quick look at their website had me immediately worried, and a short Google later, I saw that they are an offshoot of the NXIVM cult that has been all over the news. The woman I was talking to, that I knew since age 8, was Lauren Salzman, who just this week pled guilty to holding 2 sex slaves locked in a room for 2 years. She was trying to recruit me and basically everyone at the reunion into NXIVM. I noped right out of that email conversation and have been watching everything unfold for the last 5 years. They're all looking at some serious jail time now. A former student of mine grew up in an ultra-conservative Christian home. He and his siblings were never allowed to socialize with other students during lunch and recess. Whenever they had free time at school, they had to read their Bibles. In science class, they were forbidden to learn about evolution. Every essay, short story, personal narrative, and poem he wrote for me involved some kind of Christian theme. When he graduated, he immediately enrolled in a big seminary in our area, and that was the last I heard of him, until his class invited me to their 10-year reunion. The same kid showed up with sleeve tattoos, piercings everywhere, slamming beer after beer after beer, and smoking like a locomotive. When I asked him what he was doing now, he responded he was currently a bouncer at a strip club. Yup, when you tell kids they can't do something, it's only going to make them want to do it more when they're adults. So, not a school reunion story, but I thought I'd input a happy story since a lot of these are a bit depressing. My mom used to be a teacher for children with severe learning disabilities. By severe, I mean the majority of students she taught could barely do anything for themselves. Now she's retired, but one day, we were in the supermarket when a lady comes up to my mom and hugs her. She seems a bit surprised at first and asks if they know each other, and it turns out she used to be in her class. We get in the car and my mom instantly breaks down in tears. After a few minutes, she explains to me that 20 years ago, that lady had been unable to speak, walk, or even go to the bathroom by herself, and yet there she was, out on her own, talking to us and doing her grocery shopping. What probably made my mom cry was that after so long and accomplishing so much, the girl actually remembered her old teacher. Not the teacher, and not the full school reunion either. I'm not sure if those even still happen since Facebook is a thing, but a group I hung out with, of nerds like me in high school, wanted to get back together and play Deathmatch Quake, LAN party style, like we did as kids. I'm effectively a loser with no social life, and I'm scared of people. But this I thought I could handle, so I went. They asked me to pick up Joe on the way to the party, and I do. Joe was out of shape when we were kids, like a pudgy kid. That was all that was really wrong with him. He was smart, well-kept, and rich as F. Like Dad owned a restaurant franchise rich, not like one of the locations, like the entire company. We always had parties at his house. We didn't bring our own computers, cause he basically had a lab we all played at. So I was a bit curious why we weren't repeating something like that. Not that I cared. I have my own lab. Not rich though. So we could have all had a computer. But we went to another dude's house. And who cares? Everyone brings a laptop now anyhow. Anyways, pick up Joe from a really sketchy looking house. Really surprised. Dude comes out of the place really big and really dirty looking. Clothes were dirty and tattered, looked like he had dirt in his greasy hair, and he had to be 300 or 350 pounds. He was big, hardly fit in my car. Almost immediately, he tells me his dad died, then he ran the company into the ground, gambled away most of the money, invested it in stupid things, etc., and he basically tells me inside of a car ride how he blew something ridiculous like $100 million bucks. Whole thing made me sick and sad. Ah, God, I was expecting pudgy guy getting into shape story. This just sucks. Yeah, any of you future parents who happen to be rich, make sure to teach your kids the value of money. Of course, also teach them the value of other things besides money. You don't want them to end up with no money like this guy, but you also don't want them to end up with a lot of money and basically have nothing else and be dead inside. I have a few. One guy was this star pupil, smart, handsome, athletic, everything, dating the head cheerleader, some Hallmark movie shit. They'll even go off to college, and nobody thinks he'll go wrong. Come 10 years later, she divorced him, was given the house his late grandfather built in the divorce, and lived there with her new lover while he was in a hotel. 10-year reunion happens. He's deathly skinny and depressed, sees the school, remembers the memories he had, goes home after reunion, and kills himself, leaving behind 2 little girls. His ex got chased out of the community last year, death threats against her and her lover. She's trying to get in contact with people now because the lover took her money and fled back to the Philippines, and she's homeless now. I'm a middle school teacher of over 10 years, so some of my students are high school and college graduates at this point. I'm happy to say that a good number of them have reached out to me to share life stories and updates. The one student that comes to mind was confidentially suicidal from a broken home with identity issues. She came to me for help, and we found spoken word poetry as an outlet for her emotions, anxiety, and the discovery of self-worth. She's currently returning to school to finish her associate's degree, and she was the first in her family to graduate high school. I get updates from her on her birthday each year. She still writes and performs spoken word poetry in her spare time. My husband graduated from a fancy prep school. Literally over 90% of his class are lawyers and doctors now. To his parents' disdain, my husband became a professional poker player. Whenever he goes to reunions, there's a circle of these super successful doctors and lawyers around him, because they'd rather listen to his stories. If you want more where that came from, simply click on one of these boxes right here. And if you liked the video, I assume you did since you're still here, remember to let me know by giving it a thumbs up. And of course, if you haven't already, click my channel icon right here to subscribe and be one of the first viewers for every video I upload. I'll see you in the next episode of Reddit Chronicles.